Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. My name is Sudhir Sahasranaman and you're watching your own digital classroom CBSE with Sudhir. What are we going to do today? We are going to look at the second chapter of your second part textbook of Exploring Society for Class 7. That is this particular book. All the chapters of the first part have been done. I have done the first chapter of this book also. So now we are on to the second chapter, which is again a geography chapter. India and her neighbors. So, what we are going to do today is essentially to do a tour of the neighborhood of our great country. Which are the different countries that form our neighborhood? We should know a little more about them, right? So, that's what we are going to do today. So, what will we study in this particular chapter? Before that, I just want to look at the map so that you get an idea which are the different countries that we are going to talk about. We are here. There is Pakistan on our left, then Afghanistan, then Iran, right? Iran, which is in the middle of a war right now. And then there is Oman out here, right? Then there is Oman out here. And then this one is the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, right? That is this country, right? So this is to the western part of India. The southern part of India will be looking at Sri Lanka, beautiful country, Maldives, right? Both of them in the Indian Ocean. Then towards the left northeast part of India, we have China, we have Nepal, and we have Bhutan. That is all towards the northeastern part of India. The southeastern part of India will have countries like, Bangladesh towards the east part of India, then Myanmar, which was earlier known as Burma. You have Thailand, you have Malaysia, and Indonesia. So these are the different countries that we are going to focus on in this particular chapter. I would request you to take a very close look at this particular map so that you have a geographical understanding of where we stand and where our neighbors stand vis-a-vis our position. This understanding is very important. You need to know where Oman is. You need to know where Malaysia is. We need to know also where Singapore is. That's another country which I missed out, right? So you need to have a very clear idea about their position on the world map with relation to India, right? Later on, of course, we do map marking mainly on India in class 10, but this kind of an understanding will definitely help you in the future also, right? When you have to go to Malaysia, you should know which direction you need to fly in. Okay. Now, what are we going to do in this particular chapter? We are going to study what defines a neighbor. Who exactly is a neighbor, right? The flat, the apartment which is next to yours, right? Who is he? Who is she? Which family lives there? What do they do? How many members of the family? What religion they follow? What practice they follow? What kind of neighbors they are, right? All those things are important, right? In the case of a neighborhood, the same applies even to a country, right? Like former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee had once famously said that we can never choose our neighbors, right? The neighbors will come and there. It's geographically there. You can't choose your neighbor. You cannot choose who should be your neighbor, right? So that is the way it is. It's a permanent thing, and you need to ensure that you have friendly relations for mutual benefit, right? So, what defines a neighbor? Is it just shared land borders? Is it just because you are sharing a particular piece of land or the sea that you become a neighbor? That's what we will define in this particular chapter. The second question that will be raised is how do geography and history influence the nature of India's relationships with her neighbors? Very important question, because you realize that Buddhism has been a major influence when it comes to India's relations with several countries, whether it is with Myanmar, Sri Lanka, the South Asian countries, then you have to an extent even China, to an extent even Afghanistan. Though a very minor influence, and I'll tell you exactly why I'm saying that. So Buddhism has been a major influence. When you talk about India and Pakistan, we were once part of the same country, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But post partition and post 1971, when Bangladesh was formed, we became three different countries. So, in that sense, history has played a major role. Geography, of course, because these are all sharing the same landmass or the sea routes along with India, right? So, this is another important question. The third question that we are going to discuss in this particular chapter, explore, is in what ways are India and her neighbors interconnected today? What is the kind of connection? What is the kind of relationship we have with our neighbors? What is the kind of trade that we do with our neighbors, be it with China, be it with Singapore, be it with Sri Lanka, be it with Afghanistan or Oman or Iran? What is the kind of business, the economic kind of relationship that we have with any of our neighbors? So these are the questions that we will be discussing. So I hope you have understood till now. Now let's first start with framing the neighborhood. What exactly do we mean by this particular phrase? The map, the flags put on the maps are not very accurate, so don't go by that, right? Actually, Pakistan should have been here, and the maps are not very accurate, so don't go by that, because AI generated, illustrations, not 100% accurate. So a traditional view of a neighbor is a country that shares a land boundary. For example, India and Pakistan have a land boundary, right? Such as Pakistan and Afghanistan in the northwest, right? Between Pakistan and Afghanistan, between Pakistan and India. China, Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan in the north. So these are the different countries in the northeastern part of India. And Bangladesh and Myanmar in the eastern part. What I told you, right? In the first map, what I showed you. Bangladesh, Myanmar to the east, Nepal, Bhutan, China to the northeast, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran to the western. Of course, we don't share a border with Iran. We share it with Pakistan. Pakistan shares it with both Afghanistan and Iran. So this is something which you need to know about even as a student of geopolitics. So India's land boundary exceeds 15,100 kilometers. That's the kind of land boundary that India shares with its different neighbors. Now that you have seen the map, you would kind of get an idea. One, of course, is with Pakistan. Then you have it with Bangladesh. You have it with Nepal. You have it with Bhutan, right? You have it with Myanmar. And of course, you have it with China, right? So with six countries, I repeat, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, 4, Myanmar, 5, and China, 6. These are the 6 countries with which India has land boundaries, which is 15,100 kilometers. Is that clear? You keep looking at this map, you will get a lot of clarity. Okay, keep this map open on in your textbook also. It traverses means it kind of covers, it kind of moves over diverse land, different kind of landscapes, including deserts like India, Pakistan, plains, which could be plains would be actually Bangladesh kind of thing, though it's also forest area, mountains, which would be Nepal, Bhutan, China, right? And marshes, this is again Bangladesh kind of thing. Myanmar to an extent, right? So you have all these things. Plains would also be with respect to an extent with Pakistan, but Pakistan, you have different kind of thing. You have mountains in the Kashmir. Punjab will be plains. Rajasthan will be the desert area. Gujarat will be a mix of different kind of landforms, right? So you have different kind of landscapes when it comes to the land boundary. What is a maritime neighbor? Now, this is something which you have understood with respect to a land neighbor. What happens in the case of neighbors like Sri Lanka, with which we are not having a straight land boundary? How can we describe them as neighbors as well, or the Maldives? A maritime neighbor, maritime is another word for water, sea, ocean kind of a thing, right? A maritime neighbor is defined as a country connected by a shared sea or ocean, like in the case of Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Even without a direct land border, we don't have a direct land border with either Sri Lanka. There is no land border here. There is a sea in between India and Sri Lanka. Similarly, Maldives and India, there is no shared land border, right? And these water bodies have facilitated centuries of trade and cultural exchange. So you have trade, you will kind of import, export things like cloth, textiles, spices, excuse me, sorry, spices, gold, different kind, excuse me, different kinds of commodities. So that will all take place through the sea route. So trade has happened over the years. Then India's immediate maritime neighbors across the waters, as I just now told you, are Sri Lanka and Maldives. Though if you take a wider view of the world, you would also include countries like Thailand, you would include countries like Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So you will talk about Sri Lanka, Maldives, Oman out here. This is again the sea route, and on the eastern side, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. But the closest ones are Sri Lanka and Maldives. I hope this is absolutely clear, right? You're getting a very clear idea by looking at the map. Then India's strategic maritime position. Now the Indian Ocean that we have, see, because when you see the peninsula, when you look at the peninsula out here, like this is known as the peninsula. It is in this shape, the southern part of India, right? So you have the Arabian Sea out here, you have the Bay of Bengal out here, and below is the Indian Ocean, right? So Sri Lanka and Maldives are both in the Indian Ocean. You have the Lakshadweep Islands, which are of course a part of India, in the Arabian Sea, and you have the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal, right? So India's strategic maritime, so both Lakshadweep and more importantly Andaman and Nicobar Islands are like defense outposts as far as India is concerned. So the Indian Ocean is world's third largest ocean, I mean compared to the Pacific and the Atlantic, and serves as a busy transit route for half of the world's container ships and 2/3 of its oil. So when you have to actually move from this part, which is the Middle East, right? Middle East to actually the other part of Asia, you have to necessarily cross the Indian Ocean. So the Indian Ocean becomes an extremely important sea trade route. Please keep writing down these keywords that I keep mentioning, because you can use them in your answers and they will elevate the quality of your answers. I'm getting a cold now. So this is important. So the Indian Ocean that way is an extremely important strategic asset for the entire world as a trade route. India holds a unique position with a coastline of approximately 11,100 kilometers. So you have talked about 15,100 kilometers of borders with the neighbors. You have 11,100 kilometers of coastline. The coastline is where? Stretching from Gujarat down to Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and going right up to Bengal. Okay, going right up to Bengal. Gujarat to Bengal, going through the entire coast. So this entire coast, which are the states that we are talking about? Let's do a quick check. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Bengal. These are the different states which have a coastline. Does Telangana have a coastline? No, Telangana is a landlocked state. Does Madhya Pradesh or Chhattisgarh or Rajasthan have a coastline? No, it doesn't. They are all landlocked states, right? So these are the states which have a coastline, right? And a peninsular shape that extends deep into the ocean, providing access to vital sea routes between Southeast Asia, West Asia, and Africa. So you have Africa here, you have West Asia, also known as the Middle East, and then you have Southeast Asia. So this becomes an important transit point, right? This geographically, India is very well positioned, especially the peninsular India, which is what makes ports like Mumbai port, Kochi port, Chennai port, Vishakhapatnam port, so very Kolkata port, very important from the trade, sea trade point of view. Understood? Now, the central location allows India to play a major role in regional cooperation and provide timely humanitarian aid and disaster relief. So, if there is any kind of crisis in any of the countries there, let's say Malaysia, let's say Maldives, India can immediately rush help because it is located strategically almost at the center between Africa and Middle East on one side and Southeast Asia on the other side. India, the southern part of India, peninsular India, is located very strategically at the center, right? I hope this is very clear. Now, this active involvement is known as regionalism. That is, you are indulging in regional cooperation, which aims to create peace, stability, that is, everybody should be reasonably happy, and share progress through good neighborly relations, so that if your neighbor has any problem, you rush to the help of the neighbor because you are the closest. That's what happens, right? If your neighbor is having a problem, let's assume, for instance, your neighbor, the water tap connection at your neighbor's house has burst. So the neighbor is not having any kind of water supply to his or her home. So what do? You ensure you invite them, say that bring the buckets, we can fill water at our home and you can take it to your home till such time that your water supply is not repaired and restored. So you behave like a good neighbor, a good neighbor. That's what India does. Similarly, because India is the closest. Similarly, if your next door neighbor is having this kind of an issue, it is your duty, it is your responsibility as a good neighbor to actually help out your neighbor. That's what you are meant to do. Is that clear? Now, let me just tell you an information note. I have been putting this out in other videos also, but I still keep getting a lot of queries. Sir, which question bank to buy for notes, for question answers and all that? I would be doing some of the test papers, but if you are looking for a quality question bank, this is what I am recommending, the Oswald Books One for All question bank. For example, this one is for social science part 2. Okay, this is for social science part 2. Let me just show you all the ones. This is for mathematics Ganit Prakash. This is for English Purvi. Then you have, this is for social science part 1, exploring society for class 7. And let me just show you the last two ones. This is for Hindi, the Malhar textbook. This one actually has a lot of grammar. This is something which I strongly recommend. And this one is for the science textbook, Curiosity, right? So if you are looking for a good quality question bank, there are a few other question banks in the market, but this is what I strongly recommend because I think the quality is very good. The link to buy it on Amazon, follow this particular link to buy it on Amazon, right? So you can do that. Alternately, even better than that is that if you buy it from oswaldbooks.com website, you can use my author coupon code of Sudhir10, with which you will get additional discount. So oswaldbooks.com website, before you make the payment, put this coupon code, you will get additional discount. Otherwise, follow the link to if you wish to buy it on Amazon. Either of the two you can do. This is for any book that you buy from Oswald Books. Any of the question banks or test papers you buy from Oswald Books. Let's now move forward. Now, we are now going to go neighbor by neighbor. We will start with our most powerful neighbor, which is China, with whom we have had a bit of a love-hate relationship. We fought a war in 1962. We have had border issues with China, but nevertheless, it is one of our most important and most powerful neighbors. So since 1950, India and China have shared a strategic relationship shaped by history, trade, and politics. History, because of a lot of the cultural exchanges that took place between India and China. Trade, there's a lot of trade that takes place, business that takes place between India and China. And politics, what I just now told you, it has been kind of marked by mutual doubts, sometimes a lot of mutual cooperation. So it has been a relationship that has seen many ups and downs, with a border stretching across Arunachal Pradesh. Now, there are some parts of Arunachal Pradesh which China says, no, these are ours. India says, no, Arunachal Pradesh is our state. So there are these kind of land border disputes which are also there. Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Himachal Pradesh, and Ladakh. So you have a border which stretches from Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. This, of course, is Nepal, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. So it is a fairly long border that we share with China, right? Now, cultural links are deeply rooted in Buddhism because Buddhism is the religion which is largely practiced in parts of China, which originated in India. Buddhism, of course, originated in India and reached China around the 1st century CE via trade and pilgrimage routes. So you had Buddhism kind of almost being exported to China because travelers, because traders, etc., went from India to China. Intellectual ties were forged by Chinese monks as in sadhus, like Faxian, like I don't know how to really pronounce this, so I may be completely wrong, but you can see the spelling. While Indian monks such as Bodhidharma and Kumara Rajiva actually traveled from India to China. So, because of this kind of a exchange of saints and monks, this kind of a exchange of ideas, religious ideas actually took place between India and China. Now, in the 13th century, Hindu merchants built temples in the Chinese port of Guangzhou, including the Kaiwan temple, which features carvings of Mahavishnu and Lord Shiva. So you see Lord Shiva and Lord Mahavishnu's carvings on a temple, right, in China. Now, that's again shows what? Unless people from India had moved, Hindus moved from India to China, influenced the living of the people in that particular part of China, this wouldn't have taken place. So that is what shows the cultural and religious interchange between India and China, okay, over the years. Now, let's talk about the trade part, which is very important because India and China are important trade partners. We do a lot of business, right? So today, trade is a major component of the relationship, though it is currently in China's favor. That is, China seems to be exporting far more stuff to India than India does to China. For example, China's exports to India, you can see it is this much, whereas India's exports to China is only this much. This is 8 times more than that what India's exports to China. So this is something this is what we call in economics as trade imbalance. That is, we are buying lot more from China compared to what we sell to China. So there is a trade imbalance. That is what the term which is used in economics. While recent years have seen tensions over shared borders, both nations use dialogue and border resolution mechanisms to manage disputes. So there are delegations which go and kind of talk about the border issue, how to resolve the border disputes. There were skirmishes that took place on the border. So how to resolve this? So this happens both at the level of Defense Ministry as well as the External Affairs Ministry, right? What does India export to China? India exports iron ore, India exports chemicals, India exports cotton yarn. Now, these are the three main things that India sells to China. What does India import from China? Mainly electronic items, because now if you see any kind of electronic items, you are more likely to see made in China from there, right? So that means in any item, or at least the parts which are used in any kind of electronic item, largely use spare parts which have been used, ancillary parts which have been manufactured in China, right? So that's mainly the electronic goods. Next, let's come to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan obviously was once part of India. This once was fully India, right? If you remove Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, we were one big country, right? So Pakistan was part of India before the 1947 partition. A colonial legacy. Legacy means something which has come from the past. Colonial means we were being ruled by the British. We were a colony of England that continues to shape their complex relationship today. So even though the partition took place in 1947, there still have been lots of issues. There have been issues concerning terrorism, cross-border terrorism, terror attacks, as a result of which our relationship with Pakistan has largely been one of lack of trust. And that means there has been lack of cooperation. For example, the Pakistan cricket team is not allowed to tour India, right? Largely, we haven't had cricket ties for a long time. There have been occasionally, we do find problems with any kind of Pakistani film actors acting in any of the movies in India. So, unlike India, Pakistan was founded on a religious basis because Muhammad Ali Jinnah said that this will be a country for the Muslims, whereas India said that we are going to be a secular country. So, whether you are a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, a Sikh, a Jain, a Buddhist, a Jew, whoever you are, irrespective of your religion, India can be your home. Pakistan, of course, there are Hindus living in Pakistan, they are in a minority, but it is known as an Islamic Republic of Pakistan. India is not like that. Okay, and that is a major difference between India and Pakistan. India, you see, there are people of all religions living harmoniously. Pakistan, it's essentially an Islamic republic. The relationship between India and Pakistan has been defined by ongoing tensions and several military conflicts. You had the military conflict in 1948, soon after partition and independence. Then you had in 1965 the Indo-Pakistan War. In 1971, when Bangladesh was created, which was once East Pakistan, but India helped Bangladesh become a separate country. Pakistan was broken into two. And the 1999 Kargil War, when Pakistan occupied the Kargil Heights in Jammu and Kashmir. Frequent terrorist attacks supported by Pakistan Army have hindered normal relations. Pakistan Army and their ISI, right? That has kind of created problems between India and Pakistan. Then the border stretches across Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, and Ladakh. So you have from Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, and I mean, actually, it should be Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Ladakh is more towards the Chinese side, right? So, but some part of it may be coming like that. Okay, so this is essentially the border between India and Pakistan. Despite the tumultuous means very, a relationship that has seen various ups and downs, shared heritage. Heritage means because if you go to Pakistan, you will realize that they speak the same language. They speak the same kind of Hindi mixed with a bit of Urdu. You can understand it very easily, right? Through languages, cuisines, and music. In fact, when my wife had gone to Pakistan as part of a delegation many years ago, one of the shops where she was buying some dresses, they said, no, हम आपसे पैसे नहीं लेंगे, आप सिर्फ इंडिया में जाके लोगों को वहां पे बताइए कि पाकिस्तान के लोग खराब नहीं होते हैं, पाकिस्तान के लोग दिल के अच्छे होते हैं, हमारी आवाम के बीच में काफी मुसीबतें हो सकती हैं, हमारी सरकारें लड़ सकती हैं, लेकिन जहां तक एक नॉर्मल पाकिस्तानी का सवाल है, हम आपकी मूवीज देखते हैं, हम आपकी क्रिकेट टीम को फॉलो करते हैं, हम आपके देश में आकर हेल्थ फैसिलिटीज का फायदा उठाते हैं, because Pakistan doesn't have the same kind of health facilities that India has, right? So we do all that. So we have a lot of love and affection for India. So what the Pakistan Army does, what the ISI does not have anything to do with the common man and woman in Pakistan. I'm just telling you a sentiment, right? Cuisines, the kind of food they eat, music. I mean, Dhurandhar, which is set entirely in Pakistan, has been one of the biggest hits as far as Bollywood is concerned, Hindi movies are concerned. Then the cuisine, the music, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, one of the famous Pakistani singers, very famous in India, right? As well as religious landmarks like the Katas Raj Temple in Pakistan's Punjab and the Hinglanj Mata Mandir in Balochistan. So these are some of the religious monuments, temples, etc., which are there in Pakistan still, right? Which are revered even by people in India. Another one which is very important is the Kartarpur Gurudwara, right? Now the Kartarpur Gurudwara Darbar Sahib, the Kartarpur corridor opened in 2019 after a lot of effort by governments in India, different governments in India, is a visa-free crossing that allows Indian pilgrims to visit the final resting place of Guru Nanak Dev, who founded Sikhism at Gurudwara Darbar Sahib in Kartarpur in Pakistan. So Kartarpur is in Pakistan, right? So lot of effort was made ki can we allow the Sikhs who want to go and visit Gurudwara Darbar Sahib, because this was a final resting place. 18 years Guru Nanak stayed there in Kartarpur. I mean, when it was part of Akhand Bharat, right? And he was the one who founded Sikhism. So people who want to go to that Gurudwara should be allowed to go without the problems of actually acquiring a visa, etc. So for many years, this was a major problem. For decades, Indian devotees could only view the holy site, Kartarpur Gurudwara, from a distance using binoculars set up near the border at Dera Baba Nanak in Punjab. So through the binoculars, they would be able to see the Gurudwara from a distance, but never be able to actually visit the Gurudwara. So this idea of a corridor was started in the 1990s sometime, and it became a reality only in 2019 when the corridor was officially opened to mark Guru Nanak's 550th birth anniversary. Okay, so that's what happened in 2019. Otherwise, you have the Wagah border, which you may have heard of. Amritsar, that's where you cross into Pakistan. Let me this is my wife. I mean, this is a chat jeep because the original photograph was not very good. At the Wagah border, from where you move from India to go to Pakistan. Okay. Now let's move to the next neighbor, which is Bangladesh, which is on our east. Now, just to tell you a quick part of history quickly, which is not there in your textbook. See, what happened was in 1905, this was Bengal. Okay. The present Bengal, which is West Bengal, and present-day Bangladesh, which was then known as East Bengal. This was one Bengal. Lord Curzon, when he was the Governor General, the Viceroy of India, what he did was he divided Bengal into two, West Bengal and East Bengal, basically to kind of stop the national movement. So that became West Bengal and East Bengal. Subsequently, at the time of partition, East Bengal became East Pakistan, because Pakistan out here is this side, right? Then this also was Pakistan. So this was known as Pakistan. This was known as East Pakistan. So if you have to go from here to here, from Islamabad to Dhaka, you have to fly over India. It's a weird country where Pakistan and East Pakistan did not share a boundary at all. And finally, in 1971, there was mutiny against the Pakistani army, and this Bangladesh became an independent country. So this was essentially East Bengal first, became East Pakistan, and subsequently became Bangladesh. I hope this is clear. It became, I'll tell you once again, 1905. Just remember the dates. Write it down. 1905, it became East Bengal. Bengal was partitioned. It became East Bengal. 1947, it became East Pakistan. 1971, it became Bangladesh, right? So in the same century, it kind of changed names 3 times. Bengal to East Bengal, to East Pakistan, to Bangladesh, right? See, I have so much of experience because I'm not a regular school teacher. I'll give you a lot of information from across the world, which will make the process of learning far more interesting than just reading the NCERT book and like typical teachers just telling you what is there in the book. I'll tell you lots of stories, right? Because I've also, been to many of these countries, either me or my wife, so generally know a lot about what is there, right? So let's now move to Bangladesh, which was a new country formed in the year 1971. Born in 1971 following a war between India and Pakistan, and it shares a common history language, that is Bangla, because here also it is Bangla which is spoken, just like it is in West Bengal, with a culture with India. So many of them, although of course that Bangla could be a little mixed with a bit of Urdu, right? Its land border is the longest among India's neighbors, though we seem to think that China would be a longer border, but actually we share a longer border with Bangladesh because it actually works through various countries, which is why this whole problem, this news we keep hearing of infiltration from Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is not really the most prosperous country. So many of them try to come over to India also. So its land border is the longest among India's neighbors, longer than the border with China, and runs along West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. So with these 5 Indian states, Bangladesh has a common land border. Okay, so remember these 5 states. Okay, this can come in MCQs. The two nations share transboundary river systems from the Ganga and the Brahmaputra, which are essential for agriculture and transportation. So Ganga and Brahmaputra are two rivers which flow through India and Bangladesh. Then they also coordinate the protection of the Sundarban National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Sundarban National Park, which is mangrove area, so it is protected by the UNESCO, and it is there both in Bangladesh as well as in India, in Bengal. So both governments, both countries are involved in the protection and the preservation of the Sundarbans National Park, because that's where you have the Royal Bengal tiger also there. You have many varieties of crocodiles also there, and the world's largest mangrove forest, which is something which we have studied, or we are going to study in 8th class in Sundarbans, the mangroves. So those are all meant to be protected. So both countries, both governments are equally involved in that. Then Bangladesh is highly vulnerable because it actually faces a lot of cyclones, right? Cyclones, sometimes they start around Tamil Nadu. Everybody thinks it will hit Tamil Nadu, but it keeps moving eastwards, and sometimes goes and hits Bangladesh. So Bangladesh has always faced the fury of cyclonic storms a lot. It is very vulnerable, means it is prone to a lot of cyclones, climate change, with experts predicting major impacts from rising sea levels and intense cyclones. So when the sea level rises also, Bangladesh faces those kind of threats because it is there right on the Bay of Bengal. Then the next country neighbor that we look at is Nepal, which is to the northeastern part, which shares the border mainly with Uttar Pradesh, also with Uttarakhand, Bihar. You can go into Nepal from Bihar, West Bengal, and Sikkim. So Nepal shares a long open border with Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, and Sikkim. And Nepal is right in the lap of the Himalayas. For example, in fact, my sister and brother-in-law were planning to go to Mansarovar. So you do it from the other side. So you need to fly into Kathmandu, and you do it from the other side and not from the Indian side. That's how it is meant to be. It's one of a very difficult kind of a trek. But otherwise also Nepal and Kathmandu, the capital, is a major tourist destination. So in 1950, there was a treaty of peace and friendship which was signed, which allowed citizens of both India and Nepal to move freely without passports. So if you need to go into Kathmandu, you do not really need a passport. It's almost like it's part of India, or a visa for work, education, and trade. So it's essentially a red carpet welcome. Cultural ties are profound, means they are very deep, with major Hindu and Buddhist traditions shared between the two countries, right? Again, a country which follows Buddhism. Then you have, this is a major temple in Kathmandu, which is the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu, is a significant pilgrimage destination for Indians. Then festivals like Dashain, which is another word for Dashera, Tihar, which is another word for Diwali, and Holi are celebrated in Nepal as well. So you realize Nepal is majorly a Hindu country, right? It's a Hindu country. It used to be a monarchy. It used to be ruled by a king. King Birendra was ruling for a long time. And then the family, one night over dinner, it was finished because the crown prince, over a domestic dispute, he ended up shooting dead the entire royal family. And then it became a parliamentary democracy. Prime ministers were elected. And now there was an upheaval by Gen Z. You must have read about that. And now you have a very young leader of Nepal. So Nepal is a country which has seen a lot of political upheaval over the years. Then India is Nepal's largest trading partner, supplying petroleum, supplying medicines, while importing. From there you get agricultural produce and handicrafts. Handicrafts and agricultural produce you get from Nepal, but you supply it petroleum as well as medicines to Nepal, because Nepal obviously is a much poorer country compared to India. It's a smaller country. It's also landlocked with a lot of mountains, right? You have the Mount Everest and the entire Himalayan range. All of that is present in Nepal. Then both countries work together to ensure the open border remains safe and it is not misused in any way. Then let's understand what exactly is meant by an open border. When people from two countries can travel across the border without a visa or a passport, it is called an open border. So understand this definition, and that exists between India and Nepal. You don't have it between India and Pakistan. You don't have it between India and Bangladesh or India and China. You have it with India and Nepal. This enables families living on both sides to stay connected and people to move easily for work, education, trade, or religious visits. So you have a lot of people from Nepal who actually work in India in different cities in India, right? Because obviously there isn't that much employment available in Nepal. It's a symbol of trust. The open border, it's a symbol of trust and friendship between two countries. Okay, I hope till Nepal now it's clear. So we have covered how many countries now? Pakistan, we have covered China, we have covered Bangladesh, and we have covered Nepal. Now, what is next? The next one is Bhutan, which is another mountain kingdom in the northeastern part of India, right? In fact, I'll show you a photograph from Bhutan. This is from Thimphu. This is my wife. This is from Thimphu, which is the capital of Bhutan, right? So this is the kind of a landscape that you find in Bhutan. So it is known as the land of the thunder dragon, right? It is known as like China is known as the land of the red dragon. This is known as the land of the thunder dragon. Bhutan or Drukgyal is a landlocked Himalayan kingdom because there is no sea. It's completely surrounded by land on all sides. It borders Sikkim in India, West Bengal, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh. So 4 states in India, Sikkim has a border with. So if Sikkim is here, this is West Bengal, right? Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and Sikkim, Sikkim, and this is Bhutan, right? This is Bhutan. So Sikkim on one side, Bangladesh or West Bengal on another side, Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. So 4 Indian states, Bhutan has the border with. So one of the fundamental reasons why Bhutan is considered a friendly country as far as India is concerned is because of bilateral. Bilateral means between me and you. That means it's bilateral, right? If there are 3 parties involved, it will be known as trilateral, right? So bilateral cooperation between India and Bhutan is hydroelectric power. This is very important because many rivers actually originate in Bhutan, providing renewable energy to India. So India, if it is able to set up facilities with which to tap the hydroelectricity, right? The hydroelectric power through the rivers which are flowing from Bhutan, it is a major area of cooperation, right? It can it can provide that electricity to Bhutan while also taking a part of the electricity because Bhutan may not have the resources or the know-how to tap those rivers for hydroelectric power. Then, of course, Buddhism is the major other connection, spiritual connections rooted in Buddhism. So you realize Buddhism has played a major role in what India is as far as this entire part of the neighborhood is concerned. Particularly the influence of Indian master Guru Padmasambhava, who introduced Vajrayana Buddhism to Bhutan in the 8th century, right? So this is as far as the history of Buddhism in Bhutan is concerned. Then Bhutanese pilgrims frequently visit sacred Buddhist sites in India such as Bodh Gaya in Bihar, Rajgir, Nalanda again in Bihar, Udaygiri and Sikkim. So in all these places there are a lot of, this is the typical Bhutanese dress. Bhutanese dress is very, very interesting. Very interesting. I remember my wife had bought one for my daughter, very bright red color kind of with a lot of floral design kind of dress. It's a very smart kind of an attire, the Bhutanese dress. Then Bhutan is also unique for developing what is known as the Gross National Happiness Index. Bhutan is considered the happiest country in the world. right? People there are happy because you have fresh air, fresh water, and people generally there are happy, right? So that is something, and it is really known for being a very happy country. To measure national progress through sustainability, that is, you do things, you eat fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and generally do things in a happy state of mind. Good governance, where there is, no or less corruption, and cultural promotion, you promote cultural, your local culture in a way and not get influenced by Western culture too much. So their gross national happiness index is very good. Then this is something which I wanted to tell you. The capital of Bhutan is Thimphu. It's not there in your book. The capital of, and this is for your general GK. Capital of Bhutan is Thimphu, but the airport is in a place called Paro, Paro, right? Which is, I think, about 1.5 hours from Thimphu. It's considered one of the most challenging airports in the entire world because the airport is surrounded by mountains. So the pilot has to be very, very well trained to be able to ensure that you don't go and strike any of the mountains. You come right in between that and then come and land on the airstrip. So it is considered you have to be an absolute top expert pilot to be able to fly into Bhutan and land at Paro Airport, right? It's one of the most challenging airports to land on because it is surrounded by mountains on all sides. So you have mountains on all sides, and this is the airstrip where you have to land. Okay, I just thought I'll tell you so that you know something more than what's there in the book. Several important rivers originate in Bhutan and flow into India. They are vital for agriculture and hydroelectric power generation. Several major power plants contribute to Bhutan's economic growth and also supply renewable energy to India. So India is able to tap the water for hydroelectric power, renewable energy, and we also help them in their agriculture, power generation, everything, right? So it's an area of mutual cooperation between India and Bhutan. Then three main schools of Buddhism grew in ancient India and migrated to many of our neighbors. So let's understand about three schools of Buddhism. What is the difference between them, right? What do they essentially mean, and which countries did these three different schools actually go to? Okay, so the first one is known as the Theravada, or the school of the elders. Okay, it took shape around the 3rd century BCE. It is considered closest to Lord Buddha's original teachings. Okay, Theravada. And today has followers mainly in Sri Lanka and in the Southeast Asia, especially Thailand and Myanmar. Okay, so Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand is where Theravada is followed. The second one is the Mahayana, okay, or the Great Vehicle, came into being around the 1st century BCE, incorporating new ideas and practices. So it is newer compared to Theravada, which is closer to the original Lord Buddha's teachings. It believed that the Buddha had a divine nature. Buddha was God and could guide people in many forms. This school traveled to several countries, including China, Japan, and Korea. So this traveled more in the northeastern direction, right? More in the northeastern direction, where is Japan, like China, this side, Japan, Korea, etc. So it traveled in this direction, where several sub schools, including Zen Buddhism, emerged on the way. So this is Mahayana, which is the second kind. Then the third is the Vajrayana, or the diamond vehicle, also known as Tantric Buddhism, arose around the 6th century CE as an extension of Mahayana. It emphasized special techniques and teachings such as the use of mantra. So it became more kind of vocal, mandalas, sacred diagrams which were made, and visualizations of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, the various followers. Tibetan Buddhism derived from this school around the 7th century CE. So you have His Holiness Dalai Lama in Tibet, that is essentially following the Vajrayana in Tibet. So these are the three different schools as far as Buddhism is concerned. Let's now quickly move to the other country, which is in the Southeast Asia, which is Myanmar, which was earlier known as Burma. Now, India and Myanmar share a land border with Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. Sorry. So, Arunachal, Nagaland, Mizoram, and Manipur, as well as a maritime boundary in the Bay of Bengal. Since India is the birthplace of Buddhism, for people in Myanmar, India is very special because, India is where Lord Buddha was born. Has assisted in restoring damaged cultural sites like the Ananda temple, which got damaged during an earthquake, and gifted a replica of the Sarnath Buddha statue to Yangon, right? So India kind of has very close ties even with Myanmar. Myanmar also has seen different kinds of governments. It has seen a military government, it has seen a democracy, so different kinds of governments it has seen. So a lot of political upheaval even in Myanmar. The 2018 land border crossing land agreement boosted trade and connectivity, though some movement is currently restricted due to regional conflict. So because there is also a feeling that some kind of trouble is trying to be created in the northeastern part of India, especially states like Nagaland, Arunachal, through infiltration from Myanmar. India is now a little more vigilant with, allowing people to move freely. So the land border agreement stands, but there are some restrictions which have been put in place now, right? So that is again something which is kind of dictating our present day relations with Myanmar. Okay, now let's move to the western part of India, which is Afghanistan. We look at Afghanistan now. Afghanistan shared a direct land border with India until 1947, because till 1947 this was our border because we were a full country, right? But after Pakistan was formed, we no longer have a shared land border with Afghanistan. So that is how it is. So now we don't have a direct land border, but Pakistan has. So historically, the Uttarapatha, if you remember what we studied in class 6 and even in the first part in class 7, we had, people coming in from Afghanistan, different kind of invaders, different kinds of traders, etc., would come from Afghanistan into India through the Ganga plains to Central Asia through Afghanistan, facilitating the flow of goods and religious ideas. So there was, if you remember this old story called the Kabuliwala, that is somebody coming from Kabul. Kabul is the capital city of Afghanistan. Before the 7th century, Afghanistan was a thriving means a very busy center of Afghanistan for Buddhist and Hindu culture, famously home to the Buddhas of Bamiyan, which is why I said, right, there was the Buddhist influence even in Afghanistan. Now these Buddhist statues, these Buddha statues, were destroyed by the Taliban in the year 2001. It was a big news at that time, right? You weren't obviously born at that time. In 2001, many of these Buddha statues, which were there made in caves, were all destroyed by the Taliban, right, in Afghanistan in 2001. In recent decades, India has supported Afghan development by constructing the Afghan Parliament building and the Zaranj Delaram highway. So India has been trying, because India does realize that as a counterpoint to Pakistan, you need to kind of have some leverage even in Afghanistan. Otherwise, you can't just keep making enemies everywhere. We already have a troubled relationship with Pakistan. So Pakistan also does not have a great relationship anymore with Afghanistan. So it makes sense to kind of have a friendship, a working relationship with Afghanistan. So that's what India's external affairs strategy has been. Then you had something called the SARC, which was the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, SAARC, known as SARC. This was started, I think, in 1985, yeah, when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister, to promote socio-cultural and economic progress among its members. Because at that time, the thought was that let's have the South Asian countries, let's come together and mutually cooperate with each other in order to promote culture, religion, trade, education, health, everything, so that we in the neighborhood can be good neighbors and can be good together. So, to promote social, cultural, and economic progress among its members, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka were the members. This is India, and these are the different countries which are there. Like this is Bangladesh, this is Bhutan, this is Pakistan, this is Sri Lanka, right? So you have different all these countries as part of SARC. Then But SARC is no longer a very vibrant body mainly because the two big countries, India and Pakistan, are not very having very good relations in recent years. So while SARC aims to share resources in science, health, and education, political tensions among some members have often disrupted its functioning. Then let's move to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an island. This you see, this is India, this is Tamil Nadu, this is Kerala, and this is Sri Lanka. So you have only a little bit of sea between India and Sri Lanka. Is an island nation separated from by India by the Park Strait with only 32 kilometers between them at the nearest point. So this distance is 32 kilometers, right? So otherwise, it's almost like joint. And it is believed that when Lord Rama went to Lanka, there was this Ram Setu which was built, is the belief. Buddhism was introduced to the island in the 3rd century BCE by the son Mahindra and Sangamitra of Emperor Ashoka. That's how Buddhism went into Sri Lanka. We'll study about that in class 8. The relationship faced a difficult period. Now there was, see, the Sri Lanka, the top portion of Sri Lanka, this is where Jaffna is, right? Which has more of a Tamil population. These were all people who were settled in Sri Lanka, mainly in the tea plantations, and they spoke Tamil. Okay, not Sinhalese, but they were a minority in Sri Lanka. Okay, they were a minority in Sri Lanka, so they were kind of oppressed. So they wanted a separate country, which was known as Tamil Elam, Eelam. So at that time, the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers, right, led by V. Prabhakaran, they started an armed struggle. They started fighting the Sri Lankan government and the Sri Lankan army and this was known as a civil war. From 1980s, it started, and it went on till 2009 actually, when Prabhakaran was killed, between the Sinhalese majority and the Tamil minority, which led many Tamils to move to South India. So even today, you have many people in Tamil Nadu who are there in refugee camps. They're all Sri Lankans, Sri Lankan Tamils. Okay. Today, the two countries maintain a multi-dimensional partnership based on economic and strategic collaboration. So you have the stories from the Ramayana where Lord Rama went to Lanka by building the Ram Setu, right, with the help of the Vanar Sena. And now you have this kind of a trade which is taking place between India and Sri Lanka. In fact, that reminds me, for example, I'll show you. Now, this is from a temple in Sri Lanka, right? You see the influence of Buddha out there. Then this is me and the founder of this channel, Tejaswini, in Sri Lanka. This is in the year 2015, 14 December. Then this is my wife with a sea turtle. And this is interesting. This is the spot which we found. This, you see the thing? Historical sacred place. I hope you can read this. I'll make it a little bigger. Historical sacred place where Queen Sita took her oath, the Agni Pariksha that Sita Mata took in the Ramayana was at this place. This is a very small temple that you have in Sri Lanka, which is very interesting. So there is an entire Ramayana trail that you can do in Sri Lanka. Then next, let's move to the Maldives. Now, the Maldives consists of over 1100 small islands and is located only 130 kilometers from India's Minicoy Island, which is part of Lakshadweep. So you have the Lakshadweep Islands out here. From Lakshadweep to Maldives, it's only 130 kilometers. That is the furthest part of Lakshadweep, which is known as the Minicoy Island. From there to Maldives is only 130 kilometers. Just like the difference between India and Sri Lanka is only 32 kilometers, right? Technically, okay, of sea. So these kind of small details, please ensure you remember. So this is the Maldives. Now here also you have the influence of Buddhism. So you realize that Buddhism has been a major influence. So Buddhism traveled to the Maldives early on as established by archaeological finds of ancient Buddhist temples and inscriptions. Cultural ties are centuries old, influenced by maritime trade and traditions from Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Because Maldives is very close to the southern part of India, so you have a lot of influence of both Kerala as well as Tamil Nadu, be it in terms of language, be it in terms of culture, music, food, everything. Then the official language, Divehi, is a blend, is actually a mixture of Sanskrit, Hindi, Tamil, and Malayalam, right? So you have this particular language which actually combines Sanskrit, Hindi, Tamil, and Malayalam to form Divehi, right? Isn't it a beautiful and a very interesting kind of an illustration? Then Maldivian dishes like coconut curries and roshi reflect South Indian flavor. Like coconut is something which is used a lot in Kerala cuisine, to an extent also Tamil Nadu cuisine, while the Bodu berry dance echoes Tamil folk rhythms. It will have a lot of the Tamil kind of beats to it. India was among the first to recognize Maldivian independence in 1965 and has acted as a first responder. First responder is if there is a problem, you are the first to rush there. During the 2004 December tsunami, December 26 tsunami, which I've covered in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, and COVID-19 pandemic, at that time also, India rushed medical supplies to the Maldives. The Maldives is extremely vulnerable to rising sea levels, pretty much like Bangladesh is. So, the rising sea levels can create problems for the Maldives, and it's a member of the International Solar Alliance, which is an Indian initiative. So, you have solar energy being created because it's a very little piece of land. So, you need to create for itself. You cannot build large power plants, etc. there, right? Because you may not have rivers, etc. flowing. There are no mountains, right? So, it's all surrounded by the ocean all along. So, you have the solar power being used to a large extent. To draw attention to the danger of rising sea levels. Oh, this is something very interesting. You should go and Google it and read more about it. So, in order to kind of convey that global warming is a major threat, what the cabinet in Maldives did in 2009 was that they held a cabinet meeting underwater. It was a majorly televised kind of event that you did something in order to highlight the dangers of global warming. The Maldives president and the cabinet of ministers held in 2009 a meeting underwater at a depth of 4 meters below the surface. Okay. Next, let's move further southeast to Thailand. We now need to do Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia. Okay. So, India and Thailand share a maritime boundary. Again, it's all, Thailand is somewhere here. So, from the Andamans, what is the distance to Thailand? And have been connected by sea trade since the 3rd century BCE. So, you have this is India, Sri Lanka, Andaman and Nicobar Islands are somewhere here. So, from here, you can go to Thailand. Okay, Thailand, whose capital is Bangkok. Indian cultural impact is visible in the Thai kingdom names such as Dwarabati, which is seen as another name for Dwaraka, which is there in Gujarat, and Ayutthaya, which is named after Ayodhya. So you see a lot of reference, not just in Sri Lanka, but also in Thailand of the Ramayana. Okay, this is very interesting. Then all monarchs of the current Chakri dynasty are named after Rama, right? Lord Rama names are all the kings are named after him. Theravada Buddhism is widely practiced there, while Hindu deities and stories from Indian epics like the Ramayana or the Mahabharata are also integrated into Thai royal ceremonies, dance forms, and literature. Their dresses, again, very, very colorful, very, very rich looking, right? So you can see in their entire culture, etc., music, dance, there's a lot of Indian influence also, Buddhist influence, of course. Modern connectivity is being improved through the Indian Myanmar. So apart from flying into Bangkok, you see this is Manipur. From Manipur, there is a road which is made, okay, which goes right up to Thailand via Myanmar, right? So this way, the trade route has also been developed between India and Thailand. Then next we move to Malaysia. Now India's relations, in fact, on one of my visits to the US, we were a group of 25. One of the journalists was from Malaysia and who spoke very nice Hindi and Tamil also, right? So it was quite interesting to be able to converse with somebody from Malaysia like that. So India's relations with Malaysia date back to with early adoption of scripts based on India's Brahmi script. By the 15th century, Islam became the predominant religion in Malaysia. In the 19th and 20th centuries, a large number of Indian workers, that's how you have the Indian influence in Malaysia, because many Indian workers, mainly from the southern part of India, migrated to Malaysia. Lot of Tamils, to an extent even Malayalis, which is why if you see the recent many of the Indian Tamil big movies, big budget movies, they actually have some kind of an audio launch or a premiere show in Kuala Lumpur. Why? Because there's a large expat Tamil population out there. Jananayagan's audio launch of Vijay was actually held in Malaysia, right? That's the reason. So when Rajnikant goes to Malaysia, he's a big hero in Malaysia. So they migrate mainly from South India, migrated to Malaysia to work as labor on the rubber plantation that you find a lot in Kerala, districts like Kottayam, right? Kerala friends would know. Today, 9% of the Malaysian population is of Indian origin, and India is a major trading partner in energy and palm oil. So this is where the trade takes place between India and Malaysia. Next, let's move to Singapore. Now, Singa means sing means lion. That's how it gets its name. Singapore, whose name derives from Singapuram, Lion City, was an ancient kingdom with close ties to India. So today, Tamil, in fact, you will see a lot of people who speak Tamil in Singapore. You have a lot of Tamil restaurants like Sharana Bhavan in Singapore. So Tamil today is one of the 4 official languages, and about 9% of its residents are of Indian origin, 9% of the population of Singapore. Ethnically, about 9% of Singaporean residents are of Indian origin, many of them living in an area of Singapore called Little India. Singapore is one of the largest foreign investors in India's technology and infrastructure sectors, because Singapore, even though it's very small in size, it has shown what any country can do with a lot of self-discipline and hard work, right? These are some of the major buildings, etc. in Singapore that you will see. You will see the water falling from this lion. You would have seen it in many of the photographs. Singapore has served as a benchmark for urban planning, because you cannot litter anywhere in Singapore like you do it in India. You will be fined. So it is what they say, Singapore is a very fine city. Fine city because it's neat and clean. Fine also because you get fined for just about everything. You do anything wrong, you will be fined, right? So it has fantastic urban planning and maintenance. The citizens play an important role in keeping the streets litter free. So it will be absolutely neat and clean. Next, let's move to Indonesia. Now, Indonesia is not a single landmass. It's not like one solid landmass like India is, like Sri Lanka is, like Pakistan is. It's actually a collection of many islands, actually more than 17,000 islands. Just imagine what an administrative nightmare it would be. So it's not a single landmass, it's what is known as an archipelago of over 17,000 islands with trade links to India dating back over 2,000 years. So you have it kind of spreading from here. All these are small islands. And then you see so many small islands. This together is known as Indonesia. So early maritime trade took place between kingdoms and the large islands of Java and Sumatra over 2000 years ago. Historical collaborations existed between India's Nalanda University in Bihar and the Muari Jambi temple complex. So this is Nalanda, this is the Muari Jambi complex. So there were collaborations which existed between them. Later, Islam traveled to Indonesia from the shores of India. So now much of it is also Islam as a religion is followed. This is very interesting. If you look at the coin or the notes of Indonesia, the currency, that will have the emblem of Garuda, which is the vehicle of Lord Mahavishnu, right? So this is the national symbol. So you realize that is the kind of extent of the cultural influence of Hinduism, the religious and cultural influence of Hinduism on a country like Indonesia. Indonesia is home to the Borobudur Stupa, the world's largest Buddhist monument which is designed in the shape of a mandala, right? Now, just to understand what, I'll tell you what's a stupa. Following the 2004 Indian tsunami, which happened December 26, what I told you, which actually started from the Indian Ocean near Indonesia, India partnered with Indonesia and other countries to establish the Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center. So the next time it happens, people will be able to make necessary steps quite in advance. What is a stupa? A stupa is a Buddhist shrine like this, often built in the shape of a dome like this. And inside that, you will have some sacred relic of the Buddha himself or any of the senior monks or often revered figures. For example, in Kandy, you will find a temple where one of the tooth pieces of the Buddha is kept, right? So you have these kind of things which are all known as a stupa, the places of worship as far as Buddhism is concerned. Then we come to the last two, which are in the Middle East, Iran and Oman. So Iran is an ancient neighbor as far as India is concerned. It has shared ties since the Bronze Age via the Silk Route and Sea Route connecting India's ports to India's west coast. So from there, the trade route, people would actually come, traders would come to buy things or sell things in India, both from the sea route as well as the land route. So if you have to do the land route, how would you come? From Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, right? If you have to do the sea route, you will come from here, right? And you can come somewhere near Mumbai or Gujarat. Parallel traditions exist between the Zoroastrian Avesta and India's Rig Veda. So there has been some kind of an influence between these two also, or at least there are some traditions which coexist. In modern times, India is helping to develop Iran's Chabahar port, which was in the news recently because it also, there were reports that it was kind of affected because of the Indo-US-Iran war, etc. We don't know, because India has a lot of investment in the Chabahar port, which provides a strategic gateway, because it's very important. Because if we want to bypass Pakistan and go directly into Central Asia, the Chabahar airport in Iran is very important, which is what India was having a strategic interest in developing Chabahar port out there, right? The land of copper, which is known as Oman. Now, Oman shares a maritime boundary with India at the intersection of the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Because if you see this particular map, this is where Oman is. After Oman, you come to UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc. Right? So this is very important. So from Gujarat, this is very close. So trade links with Oman go back to 5,000 years during the Harappan civilization, because we used to import copper from Oman. So it was known as the land of copper. As Oman is rich in copper, and in fact, I remember many of my father's colleagues also went and started working in Oman. Before Sharjah and Dubai became big, Oman was considered the big center as far as Indian workers were concerned. As Oman, workers, when I say professionals in the telecommunication field. As Oman is rich in copper, Harappan traders brought back ingots of the metal to coppersmiths of the Indus Saraswati civilization. So the Indus Valley civilization. So this copper, which was brought in blocks, were actually brought from Oman to India. So ingot is a lump or a block of metal put into a shape convenient for transport or reworking. So you make it into blocks which can be transported, and then it can be made into wires, sheets, whatever, vessels, etc. here by the different blacksmiths. Over 10% of Oman's population is of Indian origin, and the Hindu community established a Shiva temple in Muscat in the early 20th century. In fact, one of my friends' families, he's a doctor. He has shifted to Oman to work in a major hospital there. So you realize there's a lot of that kind of a friendship that exists between India and Oman. Oman is India's closest defense partner in the Gulf, being the first in the region to hold joint military exercises with all of India's armed forces. So whether it's the Air Force, the Navy, or the military, Oman has been collaborating with India. With this, we come to the end of this big chapter of Geography Social Science for Class 7 Part 2, India and Her Neighbors. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot of new things. So what you need to do now is to subscribe to CBSE with Sudhir if you have not done it till now. I find it very, very surprising that over 60% of many of you who use the content of the channel don't subscribe. Now, all this content is free. The least you can do is to show support by subscribing, and also share the videos on your classroom WhatsApp groups so that more and more students can know where exactly to study social science, English, Hindi, part of mathematics from as far as class 7 is concerned. Tata, bye bye. Thank you very much. Do the needful, and I'll see you in the next video.